Good afternoon and welcome to a daily dose of good news on Friday, July the 17th. It's good to be with you. I hope you're well today. Our good news today is taken from Exodus, the 14th chapter, beginning with verse 9. The Egyptians pursued the Israelites, all Pharaoh's horses and chariots, his chariot drivers and his army. They overtook them, camped by the sea, by Pi-hahiroth, in front of Baal-zephon. As Pharaoh drew near, the Israelites looked back, and there were Egyptians advancing on them. In great fear, the Israelites cried to the Lord. They said to Moses, "Was it because there are no graves in Egypt that you have taken us away to die in the wilderness? What have you done to us, bringing us out of Egypt? Is this not the very thing we told you in Egypt? Let us alone and let us serve the Egyptians? For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness." But Moses said to the people, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm and see the deliverance that the Lord will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall never see again. The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to keep still." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Why do you cry out to me? Tell the Israelites to go forward. But you lift up your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, that the Israelites may go into the sea on dry ground. Then I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they will go in after them. And so I will gain glory for myself over Pharaoh and all his army, his chariots and his chariot drivers. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I have gained glory for myself over Pharaoh, his chariots, and all his chariot drivers." The angel of God, who was going before the Israelite army, moved and went behind them. And the pillar of cloud moved from in front of them and took its place behind them. It came between the army of Egypt and the army of Israel. And so the cloud was there with the darkness, and it lit up the night. One did not come near the other all night. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea. The Lord drove back the sea by a strong east wind all night, and turned the sea into dry land, and the waters were divided. The Israelites went into the sea on dry ground, the waters forming a wall for them on their right and on their left. The Egyptians pursued and went into the sea after them, all the Pharaoh's horses and chariots and chariot drivers. At the morning watch, the Lord, in a pillar of fire and cloud, looked down on the Egyptian army and threw the Egyptian army into panic. He clogged their chariot wheels so that they turned with difficulty. And the Egyptians said, "Let us flee from the Israelites, for the Lord is fighting for them against Egypt." Here ends the reading. This event described in our good news reading for today is the gospel to our Hebrew cousins in the faith. The opening of the Red Sea in their hour of greatest need was the revelation that assures them of God's place in their lives. Just as the opening of Jesus' grave after his hour of darkest need is the revelation that assures Christians of God's place in our lives. Until the sea was opened to the Hebrews and the Egyptians' chariots got stuck in the mud, I always like that image, they were thinking that all was lost, disparaging Moses with their sarcasm. Were there not enough graves in Egypt that you had to bring us out here in the wilderness to die? They were trapped until they weren't. The Lord will fight for you, Moses promised. And the Lord did, leading them through the sea, which collapsed again behind them, protecting against pursuers. This is the event to which teachers and prophets alike would point while guiding the Israelites in the way of God's people. The law would be handed down by God, who saved you from slavery in Egypt and all of Pharaoh's chariots. "Return to me," the prophet declares on behalf of the Lord, "for I am the one who saved you from slavery in Egypt and all the Pharaoh's chariots." We hear again and again and again throughout the Hebrew Scriptures. And that promise of salvation extends through many generations. finally to be delivered once and for all through a Messiah among the Jews. A Messiah who would come to establish God's kingdom on earth. A Messiah who we have come to know in Jesus of Nazareth, whose innocent suffering, death, and resurrection is the revelation that assures us, believing Jews and other Christians, of God's loving salvation, not only from slavery and the trap of pursuing chariots, but even more so from the trap of sin and death itself. And it's that revelation to which we cling these days, friends, with our backs to the wall. Our backs to the wall of a pandemic, of social unrest, of political intrigue, with seemingly no end in sight. For we too would be trapped if not for the gospel of Jesus, who assures us that no matter what the outcome of our current challenges, a new day awaits, always. These times and trials, they will not define us, nor will they be the end of us. So while we certainly do struggle in the moment, we can be sure that a God who has suffered on a cross chooses to suffer with us too, and work then through the lives of those who trust and take hope that God indeed still fights for all people. The lives of people who will accompany encouraging one another, bear one another's burdens, trusting that the Lord can take even the smallest act or word of kindness or justice or mercy, and then beget another, and another, and another. With Jesus the Messiah raised from the dead, we know that life and love wins. May that good news give you courage and hope in these days that can otherwise feel like a trap. Amen. One name to add to your prayer concerns for this day and this week. Just received notice that Margaret Bannis will be having surgery related to her spine on her back. Just a year old or so now at this point. So that will be happening on August the 20th. So please keep Margaret and her family in your prayers, as well as we continue to pray for Gail Svensson, for Celeste and Brian Bates, and for Ann Hunter. If there's anything we can be doing for you, please do let us know, and we'll look forward to talking to you again real soon. Take care. Bye-bye.